how confident are you in the idea that this team will find a way at some point during the season to shore up their run defense? Or is that just going to be one of those things where there is a flaw and that exists because football is a sport, especially when the salary cap, where you're going to have flaws?
I'm at least I'm at least interested to see what this Hankins trade does for that, because this isn't a guy that's going to come in and completely revamp what they do on defense, but that's why he's here. It's obvious looking at his tape and his build. The man weighs 340 pounds. He's here
it's a big boy.
To help clog things. Yeah, he's here to help clog things up against the run. So I at least want to get a look at what he can contribute. And then, I think, you're going to have some deficiencies, and I think, it's never good to be leaky against the run, because that's one of the oldest adages in football is if you can run the ball, you can win. If you can't stop the run, it's going to be a problem. But at the same time, you'd like to think with Dak Prescott back in the lineup, this is an offense that's good enough to put your defense ahead. And then, again, the beauty of having this pass rush is, if you can get a lead in the second half, then it's hunting season, preferably. So I think there are ways you can overcome that. They haven't been great against the run really all season, and Tampa Bay is really the only team that's been able to consistently exploit it. And a big part of that game was how much the offense struggled as well. Even with how well the Bucs ran the ball on them, you'll take 19 points more often than not. So I'm not super, super worried about it. And I also want to see how much better it looks with a 340-pound guy like Jonathan Hankins in there disrupting things.
Sure.
David Helman of Fox Sports joining us here on the Get Right with Reggie KG on 105 through the Fan. How concerned are you about the wide receiver position right now for this team?
Very, very concerned. I wrote about it. Thank you for the plug at the top of the hit. I wrote about it today for FoxSports.com. It's greedy to ask the Cowboys to make two trades in the same trade deadline window. But seriously, it's wild to me how you could look at this team and just be yeah, we're good. And I understand that you have CeeDee Lamb and you have Michael Gallup, but literally today you see a team that has better all-around receiver depth than the Cowboys is doing everything it can to add talent. The Kansas City Chiefs, they definitely don't have a receiver that's as good as CeeDee Lamb, but they've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they've got Juju Smith-Schuster, two guys that they spent a lot of money in. They've got Travis Kelce, who is better than any tight end the Cowboys have. They've got Mecole Hardman, and what do? They go and spend significant draft capital to bring in Kadarius Toney, the first-round pick, a guy who could really add a dynamic speed element to their offense, which is one thing they haven't had. So the Chiefs have a better quarterback and better depth at the skill positions than the Cowboys do, and they still went and did some wild stuff to try to strengthen that. Whereas the Cowboys, okay, you feel good about Lamb, feel good about Michael Gallup. Dalton Schultz is injured as hell, and I would imagine, I'm just spitballing here, but I'm guessing he's not going to be back to 100% health at any time this season. Simi Fehiko's on injured reserve right now. Jalen Tolbert hasn't been able to get on the field on a regular basis. Noah Brown's been good. I'm not trying to trash talk him, but if he's your number 3 and you don't have a true insurance policy behind him, that doesn't make me feel very good. And I know James Washington's sitting there, but as of yet, we have seen him do nothing in a Cowboys uniform. You can't come at me oh yeah, when he gets healthy, he'll just step in and be a beast. That's just completely unrealistic to think that is something you can count on. So yeah, I don't feel wonderful about the options behind Gallup and Lamb. And furthermore, Gallup is still coming off of an ACL injury. I would imagine this is going to be a gradual process for him. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to look at any of that and be yes, this is good enough. So trade deadline's Tuesday. There's a lot of names out there that make you raise your eyebrows, and I think the Cowboys would be smart to try to acquire somebody. It doesn't have to be an Amari Cooper situation where you're giving up your future one, but surely there's somebody you could get for a 3 or a 4 or shoot, maybe even a 2 if it was a badass like DJ Moore. I don't know. It's at least worth looking into though.
Now, Dave, one thing that I don't know, I don't think anybody is naive enough to think that it's not an issue anymore, but it's something that I guess people have just decided that it is what it is. But this offensive line, especially when it comes to pass blocking, is not it, right? Do you have concerns about the limitations that it has on your offense, especially when you consider this team seems to be good and the expectations now are very firmly on playoff success?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give the impression that I think it's okay, but I think it's a lot harder to fix that, right? Like, there are, you need 2 good tackles you need 2 good tackles. So there's 64 starting tackles. There aren't 64 quality starting tackles. So how many teams have a surplus of good offensive linemen, and how many of them are willing to part ways with them? Like, receiver is a little bit different. There's 6 or 7 on every team. Some of these guys are underutilized because of scheme. They're a little bit, no disrespect to any wide receivers out there, but like, it's easier to find a good receiver than a good offensive tackle. So I think it's a little bit less realistic to think that you're going to do something crazy about that in the middle of the season. And then on top of that, I'm sure what the Cowboys would say is, well, every game that Tyler Smith plays, he's getting better, and then we're still counting on Tyron Smith being available for the stretch run, which I will say, that sounded kind of silly in August, where you're like, man, with the way this line looks, Tyron Smith's going to come back to a team that's like 5 games below 500, and none of this is going to matter. Which that doesn't look like it's going to be the case at this point. So at the very least, I would imagine the Cowboys are going to still be relevant when Tyron comes back. So I'm not saying it's a good situation, but I can understand why you would wait on that because of the circumstances.